Yesterday, and it was a win for Harry Foster. It's been a good few days for the Foster family because his elder brother Louis has wrapped up the American Formula 2000 Championship, and Harry Foster then yesterday taking a fourth win of the championship, and that puts him not only the driver with the most wins in the championship this year, but it also puts him second equal in the title race, having joined a meeting in. Harry Foster on pole, Steve Roberts with him at the front of the grid. Steve yet to win, tantalisingly close at Crofton again, looking for a win here. Charles Clark, championship leader, 5 points ahead of the rest, is on the second row with Matthew Armstrong, equal second with Harry Foster in the title race, lining up alongside him. Then it's Toby Trice and Mike Price making a welcome return to the championship, although he got a bit embroiled with Carl Cavers yesterday. Carl retired from yesterday's race, but he's 7th on the grid today. Rupert Laslett, who is the joint AM championship leader with Carl Cavers, he's alongside him on that 4th row of the grid, ahead of Jason Pelosi. Newcomer Callum Davis, he doesn't score points, nor does Mike Price, incidentally, as they are late additions to the championship. But John White for Stuart Parker's eponymous squad is at the back of the grid. This race is 20 minutes long. The championship caters for the 718 iteration of the Porsche Cayman GT4 Club Sport 3.8 litre 6-cylinder engine cars, mid-mounted boxer engines producing 425 horsepower, 6-speed sequential gearbox, the PDK, optimised for racing. They are on Michelin tyres, and you're looking at a car that is about 131 grand, including delivery, but you can do an awful lot of racing with it because they drop into other categories as well. You don't just have to be a one-make racer. It's a great series, though, this. It's a shame that it's not caught on in greater numbers, because if you're a pro wanting to progress into GT racing, perfect opportunity. If you're an AM who wants to go racing in a really cool car, then it fits that bill as well. And the racing that we've had all season has been really good. And as I say, Harry Foster, who came into the series for the second event at Thruxton, has been bang on the pace. He did make his debut last year, and he comes then to pole position. With him at the front of the grid, Steve Roberts. Then you've got Charles Clark lining up next on the grid. Then you've got the car of Matthew Armstrong. Now, Matt's had 3 race wins and will be, again, a man to watch in this, I would have thought. Charles Clark in the orange car, BRDC Rising Star. In other words, part of that scheme to nurture young British talent. The 5-second board is shown. It's the full Grand Prix circuit in use here this weekend. Lights go red, the lights go out now, and a good getaway from near the back of the grid by Rupert Laslett, but it's going to be Harry Foster, though, that covers off the race lead from pole position as they dive down towards Paddock Hill Bend for the first time. Good start by Toby Trice as well from the 3rd row of the grid. Rocket ship start to get him up the inside there of Charles Clark in the orange car, but Clark fights back on the inside line. Foster leads, Roberts is second and works all over the grass, and into the gravel there goes Rupert Laslett, and that is the AM championship leader jointly with Carl Cavers, and he's out of the race at turn 2. So off the road, out of the race, Rupert Laslett. He went for a gap on the inside, either went to or got squeezed to the grass. The net result is he's off the racetrack. As a big send up the inside there from Matthew Armstrong puts him ahead of Charles Clark. Now, this is not great news for the championship leader. He's only 5 points ahead, but he's down into 5th place already, and therefore giving away points. There's another race to come after this today. Then you've got the 3 races at Donington in October, but Charles Clark can ill afford to be giving away points. 3 times a winner this year, 5th on the road at the moment, but Steve Roberts still hunting down his maiden win. He's going all out now to try to get past Harry Foster, but Harry has been so quick. That is Rupert Laslett's car sitting in the gravel up at Druids. I'm looking to see whether the safety car might be deployed. Not yet. It's not on standby. Lights aren't switched on yet, so the race leaders come through Stirling's. Colin Oakley, who is the clerk of the course for the Cayman Series and for Carrera Cup GB, will be looking at whether the race can continue under a local yellow flag. And that, I think, is the intention. As for 3rd place, coming up towards the line, through on the inside line goes Matt Armstrong then. Gets himself up alongside Toby Trice, goes through. He's got the inside line, diving down towards Paddock Hill Bend. And Matthew Armstrong goes through, and Toby Trice goes in too deep, and Charles Clark gets past him as well. So after that great start, Toby Trice loses 2 places in very quick succession. And there is that so-called live snatch. In other words, the car being dragged out of the way under yellow flags. Drivers are aware of it, but the race carries on. So down they turn now out of Graham Hill Bend, and Steve Roberts taking the battle to the leader. Harry Foster it is up front then. He made his debut in the championship at the back end of last season. Turns through now onto the Grand Prix loop, but in 3rd place, Matthew Armstrong from 4th on the grid. Didn't make the best of starts, but he's been on his toes, fighting back. And let's see now whether he's able to get on the back of Steve Roberts. He's got Clark in 4th place. 5th behind him is Toby Trice. and all of the dramas have played into the hands of Mike Price, who will lead in the AMs, but he can't score points. So the AM top scorer is Carl Cavers, which is good for him in his championship. Leaders, nose to tail, and Steve Roberts, their number 56, the Red Line racing car, on the back of the Team Parker racing car. Stuart Parker's team versus Simon Leonard's team. They ride the curb coming through Sheen Curve, and now out of Stirling's, nose to tail. Steve Roberts came oh so close to a race win at Croft when they supported the British Touring Car Championship. He's had 3 second places, 3 third places in quick succession of late, and another one early on in the season, but he's not yet been on that top step, and again he's dropped back a length or two, hasn't he, coming out of Clark Curve. Steve Roberts, who is a very quick Formula Ford racer, he's had great success at club level in the one-make BMW Compact Series as well, in which he was the champion a good few years ago. And Matt Armstrong there, who came out of Caterham racing into Porsches, hunting them down, taking Charles Clark with him. Now the danger here is that he gets a bit stuck behind Steve Roberts, and that enables Harry Foster to get away. So Roberts needs somehow, easier said than done, to find a bit of pace to get back onto the tail of the race leader. And actually at this part of the circuit, you'd say he's done it. But coming through Clark Curve, that gap discernibly widened last time. There through in that third place, Matt Armstrong then, winner of the opening round of the championship at Silverstone. He won the 2 Croft races as well. And down they come then into the right-hander of Hawthorne, and Roberts does close up once again. So Harry Foster feeling the pressure a little bit. Harry, who started the season with 3 thirds at Silverstone, but then at Thruxton really came good by taking honours in both races. That's Mike Price in the green car. He is the leader for Forel Estates Racing of the AMs, but that is the best AM point scorer, Carl Cavers. He was the joint championship leader going into the race. His championship opposition, Rupert Lansler, in the gravel, and the car ahead can't score points anyway. So it's looking good, this, for Carl Cavers, who has had 4 race wins within the AM category this year. So the lead gap coming down a fraction then, 20-minute race. The fastest lap has been done by Matt Armstrong in 3rd place, but as the leaders come by now, Harry Foster 4/10 of a second up, and Matt Armstrong might have to look to his laurels a little bit here, because you can see now the way that Charles Clark is inching up behind him, and that means they're sort of paired off a little bit for the top 2 battles, one for the lead, one for 3rd. Charles Clark now does the fastest lap of the race in his quest to get onto terms with those ahead as the cars drop down towards Graham Hill Bend again, and maybe that's where Roberts, he might know Brands Hatch a little bit better than Harry Foster. I can't think that Harry's raced here before, whereas Steve will have done in Formula Fords and in BMWs, even if he's not done that many miles on the Grand Prix circuit. He will on the Indy circuit here. And he raced Ginettas here, of course, because he came out of the GT4 Super Cup, in which he was a pace setter last year. So he's got the track knowledge. Harry Foster, though, hangs on to the race lead. Down they drop then to Hawthorne's. This is lap 4. In yesterday's race, which was won by Harry Foster from Charles Clark, from Steve Roberts. It was a 13-lap race. And into Westfield they turn now through the right hand. A bit of a twitch there from Steve Roberts' car. He's certainly overdue a win. It would be a really popular one if he could do it, but Harry Foster going the GT route, whereas his brother goes the single-seater route. Father Nick, you might recall from the British Touring Car Championship as part of the West Surrey racing team, and still a prominent figure in the paddock connected to WSR. The leaders come down now into Clearways, then Clark Curve. Toby Trice, after that demon start, has certainly dropped back, hasn't he now? That gap has widened a little bit between 4th and 5th. So Toby, I just wonder whether he had a problem, because he ran deep into paddock for no obvious reason, and maybe if there is an issue with the car, it explains why he ran wide and why he's also dropping back as they swoop once more around Paddock Hill Bend. The climb towards Druids now. This, lap 5. Again, Matt Armstrong in 3rd place, edging closer to Steve Roberts. Charles Clark, whose dad Steve has been an occasional Carrera Cup GB racer of late, but British GT racer in a Viper a good number of years ago. And Charles Clark started the year with 2 wins out of the 3 races at Silverstone, and then had another win at Alton Park, where the cars raced alongside the Porsche Club of Great Britain Championship at a one-day national level meeting. But the bulk of the season has been split between British GT support and British Touring Car support activity, and delivered great racing along the way. The leading quartet then, certainly dropping Toby Trice in that 5th place, comes towards Westfield again, and these somewhat elasticated gaps stretching and coming down, waxing and waning at different parts of the circuit. That's Foster, and the gap last time had gone up to half a second. To the eye, it looks greater again, doesn't it, as they come now up through the right-hander at Sheen Curve. Into Sterling's, that's Trice. So you've got the pros in their fight at the front, and then the AMs, here they are. Mike Price in the car run by Apex Motorsport turns through. And we've not seen very much of Mike this year in the championship, but he has been a regular Porsche racer over the seasons and going very nicely right now. He drove in the championship last year. He's raced in the Porsche Club Series in the past. He's also had a spell in the 750 Motor Club's Enduro Championship and came out of track days. He's only been racing for about, what, 6 seasons or so. But Mike Price got roughed up a little bit in the championship last year and has come back into it and having a really good weekend in yesterday's race. Mike Price had early damage thanks to Carl Cavers, but battled on, finished in 7th place. But as I said earlier, he's not eligible, don't forget, for points. So through they turn again. The race leading quartet bunching up a little bit. Through they turn. If anything, third is where the fight's going to come, isn't it? Matt Armstrong under attack from Charles Clark. Now, Clarkey runs a little bit wide up to the curb on the outside line, but Matt Armstrong busy defending, and that, of course, is going to affect what he can do about those ahead of him. From Westfield, through Dingledale, road climbs here. Up now through the right at Sheen Curve. Ride the curb once again towards Sterling. Slightly banked, this left-hander. Turn out of the corner, fire the trigger down towards Clearways, then Clark Curve, a long right that goes on forever. And the race leader, Harry Foster, has now done the fastest lap of the race. He's also built the gap to 0.8 of a second. But Steve Roberts is doing his best to go with him up towards the line. Now to the eye, that gap doesn't look 0.8 of a second, but it's 0.6, so it's come down a fraction. That time around, Steve Roberts, as he's done before, just able to bring that gap down slightly. But what he's not been able to do is get close enough to have a proper go for the place. They turn through yet again. Drop now into Graham Hill Bend. Charles Clark, a little bit like Steve Roberts, really. He's close to the back of the car ahead. In his case, it's the car of Matt Armstrong, but he's not able to really make a move. Down they come into the left-hander now at Surtees. This brings them onto the Grand Prix part of the circuit. Those two cars nose to tail, but Charles Clark then now sits in the dirty air. The car gets a little bit hotter. He starts to work the tyres a little bit more, so if he wants to get through, and he does want to get through, he's going to have to be bold and brave about this and come from a bit of a way back. Turn right now. The gap down again as they head into Westfield. We're into the second half of the race. So Charles Clark, knowing now that he's running out of time, running out of laps. In the AMs, it is still Mike Price ahead of Carl Cavers. And then third is newcomer Callum Davis. He's another one not scoring points because he's a late addition to the championship. But Callum Davis new this weekend and going nicely. So the race-leading quartet heads to Sterling's and then down to Clearways with Toby Trice dropping away in the background. So he's now lost effectively 4 seconds to the race leader. And that race leader is Harry Foster, who breaks the beam now, goes through with 9 minutes on the clock, effectively up towards Paddock Hill Bend, and the lead goes out again to 0.7 of a second. But it's game on for third. Charles Clark now right onto the tail of Matt Armstrong. Charles rather blotted his copybook a little in the first race at Thruxton in late May by having a spin, and that's cost him points, but he's regrouped, been a winner since, and as he drops into Graham Hill Bend now, he's on the back look of Matt Armstrong, whose father Justin we've seen racing in Caterham's and Carrera Cup GB. Charles Clark pulls out of the draft, has a look, and that's really the first sign of serious intent to have a go for the place. So Charles Clark turns through, another of the Team Parker Racing entries. Team Parker, like Redline, like Voluga, that have cars on this grid as well, running in British GT this weekend. So busy day, busy weekend for the teams. And for third place, you can see the pressure now that Matt Armstrong is under. Charles Clark looking for a way by. Toby Trice behind, rather hoping this might bring him back into the mix, but you've got to say at the moment it isn't happening for him. The gap is still a big one as the cars then come through the Sterlings again. Drop it down a couple of gears, turn left now. Back onto the power, and Charles Clark, who was 0.3 of a second adrift at the start of the lap, has dropped back another 10.42, has he not? Because that gap has widened. There they are. 7.5 minutes on the clock now. Harry Foster heading for win number 5 Now, coming into this race, it was 5 points only the margin between the top two. So this is going to help Harry Foster in terms of aiming for the championship lead. And it's not good news in that same respect for Charles Clark, because he's giving away points. It's 10 for a race win. It is 8 for second, it is 6 for third, and it's 5 for fourth place. So in other words, it should be equal between the two of them come the end of the race, ignoring points for pole positions and fastest laps. But Clark aims not to be fourth, he wants to be third, and he's about to have a go now. Look at Matt Armstrong. They come out of Surtees, down towards Hawthorns. He has the intent again on the inside, but he just can't commit. He can't get alongside Armstrong. And in fairness, Matt Armstrong is not making mistakes. Even though he's under pressure, he's not looking all ragged, he's not clattering it up the curb. So Charles Clark is finding this hard work now to try to find a way by. Again, he pulls out, pulls back in again. Into the right of Sheen Curve they come. And while they're squabbling for third place, Steve Roberts, likewise, can't get close enough to Harry Foster to make that move. He is still thwarted in his efforts. 6 minutes to go as the cars come through Clark Curve, back onto the power once again. Charles Clark's car squirming then as he applies the throttle. The back tries to wag, that just helps Matt Armstrong a little. Gets away by another length or so, but it shows just how hard Charles Clark is trying. Into Paddock Hill Bend again, turns through that right-hander. Harry Foster climbs the hill, heads to Druids. Into Graham Hill Bend for this 10th time. As I say, 13 is kind of the target, given what they did yesterday. And the gap widening between the top two last time. For the first time, it was over a second. But for third place, there could yet be a change. Only 5 more minutes of the race remain. Remember, the flag goes out the first time the leader crosses the line once the 20 minutes are up. Not a set number of laps. It's purely a timed race as the cars now make that run again. Down to Hawthorns. And Clark closes up once again. Turns his way through the right-hander. Back onto the power. Down towards Westfield. To the right, this is where the road drops away down through Dingledale. It keeps turning as well. You climb the other side. You can understand why the drivers love the Grand Prix circuit here. Of course, for many years, it was one of the homes, alternating with Silverstone, of the British Grand Prix. It played host to the European Grand Prix and the Grand Prix of Europe, because that was the tag that it ran in 1964. But down now into Clearways comes this fight for third. Matt Armstrong ahead of Charles Clark. The race leader, Harry Foster, looking ever more secure. He's done the fastest lap of the race. He led last time by 1.2 seconds. Actually, not quite so secure. It's down by 2/10 now. Steve Roberts having another push to try to bring the gap down, but I just don't think he's got that ultimate 10th or two to be able to close and then have a go. The climb once again into the hairpin at Druids. Turn through the right-hander. That's for third. Look, Armstrong still ahead of Clark. It's real cat and mouse, this. Charles, arguably the quicker, but he just can't find a way by. Matt Armstrong is doing everything absolutely right. He's not blocking, he's not doing anything dirty. He's positioning the car exactly where it needs to be. And again, he darts across to the inside line there, turning now up through the corner. Drop down towards Hawthorns. Clock ticking on down. Nose to tail, and again Charles Clark tries to apply the pressure. Armstrong takes a little bit more curb there on the outside line, but there's still no way through as the cars come through Dingledale on this 11th lap of the race. Swinging their way now from the Sheen Curve sequence down to Stirling's. This will be the end of lap 11, and 2 to go. Looking at the clock, Charles Clark again just jinks to the left there, tries to unsettle the car ahead of him. Matt Armstrong, what he ideally wants is for Matt to look up and look in his mirrors at the wrong moment, and they just miss a braking point, miss a gear shift, and that will give him the opportunity to seize. He's close again as they come across the line, but there's no dive to the inside going into Paddock Hill Bend. So Charles Clark not yet able to commit, still trying, I think, to make Armstrong open the door for him rather than force the issue, which to an extent you can understand. Another race to come before the end of the day. He needs points for the championship. heroics you can think about at Donington, but right now, points are vital. The format of the championship has been double or triple headers. Triple headers normally at British GT weekends, double headers for the touring car or the standalone Porsche weekend, but we're back to 3 races here, 3 races at Donington Park, and that is Harry Foster, who, on the evidence of this race, very much is going to put himself in the mix for being the champion now. So having been the best of the rest behind these two, Armstrong and Clark, who split the wins at Silverstone, he has asserted himself as perhaps the most promising driver in the championship. His win rate greater than anybody else's. He's going to add to it right now, seemingly, with a lap to run at the end of this, and he's building that lead over the rest of them as they come again now through the right-hander out of Westfield up towards the Sheen curve curbing, over which Charles Clark rattles. Too much of that, and you can easily fire the car out wide and lose it. So there is less than a lap time left in the race now. It'll be the last lap this time, as down into Clark curve come the race leaders. There, turn 77, Charles Clark accelerates now through the long right of Clark. That's Mike Price, who is still on for a win in the AMS, and behind him is Carl Cavers, who is on for the points in the AMS. Accelerating their way towards Clearways they are. Third of the AMS is going to be Callum Davis in the background. Callum driving for Valuga, Ben Hetherington's team, chasing after his teammate, which is Carl Cavers. So in terms of the results, a second and a third in class for Valuga. Over the line they go. Valuga, another team with a car in British GT, as Charles Clark on the last lap thought about a move, still thinks about a move, but he's not close enough and he's not alongside, so there's no real sensible way that he can make that stick. He's quick through the corner though, and now is close enough to make a move. If he can stay this close all the way down to Hawthorns, then he can be bold and brave enough. But what you're seeing, look, is Armstrong moving across and trying to cover off the inside line. Then he goes back to the other side of the road to move to the apex, sweeps through Hawthorn. It's all good so far for him. Up front, Harry Foster set fair for the win, it seems. Bounce over the curb, come out of Westfield, head into the approach to Dingle Dell. Squeal of tyres up the road ahead. Now, was that Armstrong? Was that Charles Clark? Either way, the order has not changed, so they survived it. And the race leaders are coming down towards Clark curve for the final time. And Harry Foster is on target for a 5th win, and it's been a really good drive. This got away from pole position, came into the race second equal in the championship, and things could change on the basis of what's going to happen behind it. Harry Foster takes honours then in round 11 of the Porsche Visit Cayman Islands Sprint Challenge Great Britain. Second is Steve Roberts yet again. Third, hanging on in there, is Matt Armstrong ahead of Charles Clark for 4th, and there the quick starting Toby Trice comes home in 5th, and it's going to be Mike Price to win the AMS, but he doesn't score points, and therefore the best scoring AM is going to be Carl Cavers, who will be through behind him. But up towards the flag goes Mike Price. He wins the AM class, and there for the points is Carl Cavers behind him, with Callum Davis taking 3rd, albeit, again, he is another driver not eligible for points. The rest pour through behind Callum Davis. 9th was Jason Pelosi, and 10th was John White, the one that we lost early in the race being Rupert Laslett. But well done, Harry Foster. The winning margin in the end, 1.2 seconds. It wasn't a huge margin, but it was enough to keep him comfortable. And Steve Roberts thinks, what do I have to do to win a race in this championship? Harry Foster wins race 2 of the 3 at Brands Hatch in Porsche Visit Cayman Islands Sprint Challenge GB. Steve Roberts 2nd and Matt Armstrong 3rd, with the man that led the championship pre-race, Charles Clark, only 4th, Toby Trice 5th, and rounding out Pro. 6th, Mike Price to win the AMS, but he doesn't score points. Carl Cavers behind him does. A good haul for him, ahead of Callum Davis and Jason Pelosi next, with John White 10th and Rupert Laslett off the racetrack on that first lap, and therefore losing his joint championship lead in AM to Carl Cavers. So it's a very happy race-winning Harry Foster. It's no doubt a frustrated Steve Roberts yet again for 2nd place, but out clambers Harry Foster. A happy man for sure. Door closes, and win number 5 goes his way. And although he was under constant pressure, no mistakes, not a wheel wrong, and as I say, it's been a good few days for the Foster family, with Louis' success in America, and interesting to see the way that you've got one brother going the single-seater route, one, certainly for the moment, going the GT route, Dad having had a go in touring cars, and in GT cars. Barry Horn of Parker Racing goes to congratulate Harry Foster. Matt Armstrong is there in the background. You can just see the nose of the green car of Mike Price that's arrived in Parc Fermé. The Porsche Motorsport officials are there with winners' hats and will round up the drivers to the podium as Steve Roberts takes yet another second place. But Harry Foster takes on, or will take on in due course, some liquid, make his way up to the podium, and a very good drive to win by 1.2 seconds from Steve Roberts. Matt Armstrong there in third. So let's have a quick look back at how Harry Foster won race 2 of the weekend. It all came down, in a sense, to a perfect start, but a great getaway by Toby Trice, who hustled through on the inside to go third. Rupert Lanslet went to the outside of Mike Price coming up the hill and then found himself on the grass. I think he put himself there on his own, really. He darted from one side of the road to the other, but there was no grip on the grass. Around he went into the gravel and into retirement. The leading quartet ran in the same order once they dispensed with Toby Trice, who fell away down to fifth. And so it was Foster from Roberts for the lead, and it was Armstrong versus Clark in the fight for third place. Bit of understeer from Matt Armstrong as he went through Druids. Mike Price behind was looking pretty handy in the AM fight on a welcome return to the championship. He was on target to take honours within the AM category, albeit not eligible for points. So Harry Foster makes it 2 out of 2 at Brands Hatch, a 5th win of the year. So great drive by Harry Foster to take honours in the second race of the weekend, but the Porsches, as you look at Mike Price, the AM winner, will be back on track later in the day. 5 to 5, their third race will unfold, and we'll see whether Harry Foster can do the Grand Slam of 3 race wins. Might be a bit tougher later on in the day. We shall see as you look down from opposite the pits, looking into the area where the cars are being held. The driver's not yet taken to the podium. This could take a while, but handshakes all round as Mike Price makes his way in a moment up to the podium. So there is Mike posing for his photograph, and he, as I say, will head to the podium. Mike Price, Carl Cavers and Callum Davis, the top 3 in AM. And for third place in Pro, third overall, Matt Armstrong, second Steve Roberts, and Harry Foster winning yet again in Porsche Visit Cayman Islands Sprint Challenge GB. Race 3 at 5 to 5. We'll see you for that, but for now, from David Addison at Brands Hatch, it's bye for now.